Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Unquestionably Raw podcast. We are previewing the New Orleans Pelicans 2016-2017 NBA season. Our special guest again is Keith Smith of Realgm.com and today's Fast Break. Keith, how you doing?
Doing good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, anytime. And you all know Matt and myself. And we're going to jump right in. Keith, looking at the Pelicans depth chart and some of their new additions. They brought in Solomon Hill. They've got Lance Stevenson on a non-guaranteed contract. They draft Buddy Hield. They bring in E'Twaun Moore, Langston Galloway, Tim Frazier, all in free agency. How do you see those roles playing out for this season?
Yeah, a lot of roster turnover in New Orleans this year. The big thing that they want to do is get healthier. Bring guys in who are dependable that they can count on to be there for, somewhere between 75 and 82 games in the regular season. That's going to be really important. They had so many injuries the last couple of years. They at one point last year, they had 18 or 19 guys on the roster. They had at least 2 or 3 injury exceptions. It was just an ugly season all around. So that's the first thing. These guys aren't maybe the biggest names, but they all have good track records of health. E'Twaun Moore, Langston Galloway, productive players. You come in, give them good play in the backcourt, especially some coverage with Tyreke Evans out due to injury, then Jrue Holiday out due to the unfortunate situation with his wife. Of course, want to send well wishes their way. Hopefully that all gets handled and goes great for them. So hoping that's how that goes. But in the meantime, they've got to get play at those spots. So that was part of the reason why they brought in Lance Stevenson. And then Solomon Hill, small forward's been a problem for them. They haven't been able to find someone to lock down the small forward spot. And Solomon Hill's a guy that a lot of people wonder, is he a good stats, bad team guy? Is that what he was a couple years ago for Indiana when Paul George was out and he was really the only option at that position, or can he really play? So it'll be really curious to see what happens with him. I think he's definitely got the lock on that starting small forward spot to start the year. And then one of the two out of Moore and Galloway probably starts. And then Frazier and then Hield coming off the bench. So, they're going to mix and match quite a bit there in New Orleans to get it figured out as they try to find the best four, around Anthony Davis.
Nice. Matt, what do you think of some of the new additions?
I really like Buddy Hield, and I'll be the first to admit, and I think we talked about it when we did our draft preview, I was concerned, was he going to be Ben McLemore? And just really struggle to translate to the NBA with the three-point range in the NBA being further than college. But it looks like he's going to be just fine, and that's big for them because you lose Ryan Anderson, you lose Eric Gordon, so you have no shooting really. E'Twaun Moore can, and Langston Galloway maybe can make some open shots. And speaking of E'Twaun Moore, I actually really like him. Watching all the Bulls games last year, he did an outstanding job for them off the bench. Can spot start here and there. So I think he'll probably get the starting job. Good defensively, good size at about 6'3". So I think he'll be good. I don't think you'll see much out of Chuck Dallow and Tim Frazier too much. Lance Stevenson, I think, is kind of a wild card for them. If he can kind of regain what he had in Indiana, then he could be a nice pickup for them, especially not having Tyreke Evans right now. But I think the question with him is he going to keep his head glued on straight?
Absolutely. I'm going to start, since you ended with Lance Stevenson, I'm going to start with Lance Stevenson. Lance has a chance to actually do pretty well here in New Orleans. He's going to be a primary ball handler a lot of the time on offense, can kind of do what he did in Indiana and show flashes of being able to score and then set guys up if he needs to. Now, he hasn't been, that great the past few seasons, but I think with, the chance of being that primary ball handler, kind of like Tyreke Evans would have been, or Jrue Holiday would have been, he'll get his chance there. E'Twaun Moore, I'm excited to see what he can do. I loved him in Chicago. Really, really happy that he got a good contract this summer. I think he's going to be a sleeper for them. Langston Galloway, good point guard, can actually show what he can do off the bench. He showed flashes last year with New York. I think he expands on that, is a key contributor for the bench group. Looking at Buddy Hield, I had the same questions you had, Matt. Basically, is he going to be like a Ben McLemore? I wanted to see him be able to score off the dribble. Wanted to see what his defense can look like. So far, he shot the ball really well, and that's what he's going to have to do coming off the bench. Tim Frazier, I would not be shocked if Tim Frazier locks up that point guard spot in the interim. For Drew Holiday, I think it's probably going to end up going to each one more, but I think that Tim Frazier could be right there, definitely in that mix. And then Solomon Hill, many question that big contract that he got and, basically want, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what he can do. And Gonzo, I know you just rolled in, so I'm just going to go to you just about what you think of the Pelicans depth chart. Buddy Hield, Lance Stevenson, E'Twaun Moore, Langston Galloway, Solomon Hill, some of those guys. Do you have any thoughts?
He's muted.
Yeah.
There's no volume. We may have to go back to Gonzo.
Gonzo, we'll have to come back to you in just a second. So going to our second question, Keith, I'm going to come to you, and then Gonzo, we'll come back to you and hit you with two questions at once. Second question is, with the Pelicans missing Tyreke Evans and Drew Holiday probably for a good portion of the season. Unfortunately, Holiday with his wife, as you mentioned, condolences to his family, but also congratulations on their new baby girl. And then Tyreke Evans, who seems to have a good bit of health issues. What will they have to do to overcome adversity?
Yeah, they're going to have – that's where Stevenson comes in. He can be a playmaker. Matt said it, as long as he's got his head on straight, and then PU, expanded on that. So it's going to be a big deal for them. I think there's a good chance that he ends up being a starter for the Pelicans, just because to give them that second playmaker around Anthony Davis in the starting five. So it's going to be a big deal. And then that was the big reason for the depth. That was to go out and get Galloway and Moore. A lot of people, I think, are sleeping on them a little bit, thinking they're just backup guards, kind of both combo guards-ish. And are they really that good? And both of them are very good players. And most importantly, as I touched on earlier, they're dependable. You know that they're going to be there night in and night out. And then Tim Frazier is the guy they really like. They like what he can do for them. He played solid for them when he got there late in the year with the 10-day contract, and then ended up sticking around. So they brought him back, and they do like him. And I think you're right, Pete, that he may have the inside track on the starting point guard role, at least to start out the season. So that's going to be what they're going to have to do, is just mix and match. And then Buddy Hield's going to have to give them a lot of offense outside of that grouping, just off the bench probably initially to start as kind of almost a designated shooter off the bench. He didn't look good in Summer League, but that's because they were asking him to be a playmaker and a ball handler, and that's not what he does. So he's going to struggle with those kind of things. So I think it's good that they put him in uncomfortable situations. That's what Summer League is for, right? He's a first-round pick. You know you're going to have him. So there's no reason to rush him or anything. So I think he'll do fine for them off the bench. Keep an eye on Quincy Blondexter, too. They really like him. I think they're hoping to have him back and ready to go and be another shooter for them. So keep an eye on him. But it's a very long way of saying they're going to have to mix and match and make the best of what they've got.
Good. Matt, going to you.
I pretty much agree with what Keith was saying with Evans and Holiday being out. I think Lance Stevenson is probably going to get that starting spot, because not only can he give him another ball handler and another playmaker, but he's actually a pretty good defensive player. So I think that will help this group out because they're going to need as much defense as they can get. And that's why I do like Etwan Moore starting at point guard because I think he can hold it down for a little bit. Because watching last year with the Bulls and Gonzo saw it, he did a really good job for them. Gets them into their sets, knocks down open shots. He's not a guy who just has to have the ball in his hands the whole time to be effective. He'll do what he has to do. He's going to play his role. So I think that's going to be really big for them. And then, of course, with Buddy Hield, he's got to come in and make shots. And I think that'll be big if he can come in and make those threes and create a little bit off the dribble.
Absolutely. Gonzo, I'm coming to you. So going back to the depth chart, they brought in Solomon Hill, Lance Stevenson, Buddy Hield, Etwan Moore, Langston Galloway, Tim Frazier. So now we lose Gonzo. So
we're gonna go to you now, Pete.
All right. So going to me.
Oh, there he is.
Looking at kind of where missing Tyreek Evans and Holiday is going to be huge for them. I think they get a little bit redundant when it comes to Tyreek Evans and Lance Stevenson because I think very similar players have to have the ball in their hands. Lance is going to be the difference maker. Solomon Hill, if he can give you anything on offense, is going to be key. Defensively, he's going to be right there. More so, we didn't talk about a guy in Terrence Jones and just what he can kind of bring up front. Basically, played at Kentucky with Anthony Davis. You can move Anthony Davis over to the 5, put Terrence Jones at the 4. It's a lot better lineup than starting Omar Ashik at the 5. So curious to see what Terrence Jones can bring them off the bench from a scoring standpoint. Quincy Pondexter, as you mentioned, Keith, finally, if he can get back healthy, he's going to be able to knock down perimeter shots, defend as well. So he'll be a good complement to Solomon Hill coming off the bench. And Gonzo, looking at Tyreek Evans and Drew Holiday being out for a good bit of the season, how do you see Lance Stevenson fitting in with Buddy Hield, Etwan Moore, Langston Galloway, and Tim Frazier kind of off the bench as supplemental guards for those two being out?
I really don't know. I guess it just depends on Lance Stevenson's mindset. If his head is on straight, then I think that, he could be a decent guy off the bench and he can contribute. Like I said, it just really depends on him and his mindset. I think that I think Vogel, from what I've seen from the few teams he's been on, Vogel has gotten the most out of him so far. Every team after that, he seems to be kind of a head case a little bit. And I think I'm not going to say I think he's even a head case. I think it's just the fact that Lance Stevenson, he's like one of those people who kind of suffers from like a complex, right? He wants to be a star, like he grew up New York, and if you guys follow like New York news, like basketball, high school basketball news, Lance Stevenson was talked about a lot. So, he came in with a lot of hype. He's always known, they pretty much was known for, being that guy who was going to be the guy. He ended up going to Cincinnati. If I'm not mistaken, I think he might have played, he played with Cashmere Wright, I think in Cincinnati, and I think he might have played with Kilpatrick for a little bit. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, please correct me. So he wasn't really the guy even at Cincinnati. He was good, but he wasn't the guy. So when he finally got a chance in the NBA, and it's like once he gets the ball in his hands, he wants to prove that I can be that star that everyone
thought he could be, basically.
Mm-hmm. Trying to do too much. Gonzo,
yeah, basically.
Pros. Yeah, you noticed it after that All-Star snub a few years back. He was having a fantastic season, doesn't make the All-Star team, and what happens? Now he's got to prove he's an All-Star, and that whole season just went to shit after that.
Yeah, I mean, it did. So going into the next question, and this is just kind of a what-if question. If the Pelicans struggle coming out of the gate, is Alvin Gentry going to be on the hot seat, Keith?
I think they're going to give him another year after this year just because of all the injuries. He hasn't gotten a chance to coach the team at all that he signed up to coach, with Eric Gordon missing time last year, Ryan Anderson. Well, he was mostly healthy last year, but he was coming off some injuries. Holiday with in and out of the lineup, then having to have his minutes managed, and then Evans missing time, and then Davis went down again last year. So I think they want to see what he can do with a group of players that they put around. He really wants to play that up-tempo, fast Phoenix Suns style basketball from back when he was an assistant with Mike D'Antoni, and we'll see if he can get there with this group. So it's just going to depend on what they can do. Can they be competitive enough to be in and around the playoffs? If they're a complete disaster like they were last year and not even close, then I think there's a chance you see him showing the door and they move in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, do you think the same or?
I don't think he should be on the hot seat because, like Keith said, they've had so many injuries, and also the way I'm sure they hired him because of what happened in Golden State. His success when he was the head coach in Phoenix got him to the conference finals against the Lakers. Being the assistant under D'Antoni, playing that fast pace, shoot a lot of threes offense. But let's be honest, he doesn't have a roster to play that style. Tyreek Evans doesn't fit that. Drew Holiday really isn't that kind of guy. So I think now you get a guy like Buddy Hield. You're starting to build some guys, that can play that style. So I think it would be unfair. However, we know in today's NBA, what have you done for me lately? If they are complete doo-doo again, then he may get the axe.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to
I think it's fair, but it's how it works.
It's going to come down to the health of the team, ultimately. And sadly to say, last season, Anthony Davis had to do every single thing for that team to have a chance. This year, luckily, he's got some pieces around him where he's not going to feel like, man, I have to take 28 shots a game just for us to be in, anywhere near competitive in the games. And I think with guys like Galloway, Hield, even somebody like Etuan Moore, they can all kind of, be scorers around him to take that load off.
Yeah.
Terrence Jones is going to help as well. I think Terrence Jones is going to get some easy buckets down low, put up some good games. So definitely it's going to come down to health. With Alvin Gentry, you can't get rid of him this fast. I just threw it out there because he is somebody that could be looked at, well, they've struggled. Do we really have to make a change? I don't think they should, make a change based off of 2 seasons worth of injuries, because right now you're even starting out with basically you're starting, point guard in Holiday out and a, scorer in Evans is out. I mean, that would be a big blow to many teams. And it could be a big blow to the Pelicans. We'll have to see.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I want to say, I know you and I were kind of harsh on Buddy Hield going into the draft, but one thing I think we forgot, look at his career at Oklahoma. He was not the greatest player when he first went there. Obviously a good player, Division I playing at Oklahoma. He wasn't looked at as a guy who was a future NBA prospect, and look how hard he worked. So it shows he's got a work ethic, and there's no reason he can't continue to work hard and so he can play at the NBA level and be very successful and be a good player.
What I'll say, too, is I think there's a chance that Dell Demps goes first before Coach Gentry. I just think Demps is the one who's put this roster together, and he's the one who's, kind of holding the bag for all the injured players, even though it's not his fault. But I think there's a chance he goes first. And this is a team where the ownership situation is a little bit of a mess, too, with all that's going on, what you followed. But look at it, what's going on with the Bensons and their situation. So that could be a place where, they move on the GM and keep Gentry around, give him another year and see what he can do after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe Dumars is in the fold there now as well, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what he's doing. Some former consultant or something like that. So, it could be one of those where they bring in the old, he's just here to consult, and then the next thing you know, he's running the whole show.
Right. I know that all too well. So, as a Sixers fan for sure. So, With Joe Dumars, though, I'd be a little bit scared when it comes to free agency. I don't want to see any Ben Gordon, Charlie Villanueva contracts getting thrown out there.
Everybody deserves a second chance. That's what I always say.
Not those.
Yes.
So going into our next question, Keith, what do you think the Pelicans do this season in the Western Conference? Where do you kind of have them slotted?
I think they're going to be in that mix from anywhere from about probably 6 to really 13. It's kind of a big jumble there in the West. Not really any different from the East this year. You've got a lot of teams. I think they're probably going to be just on the outside looking in. I think there's too many injuries to overcome. I don't know that they'll be able to make it quite back from that. I think they're going to struggle. They could struggle offensively to put points on the board, and that's going to be a problem in the Western Conference. And I don't know that they're going to have quite an elite defense to overcome it. So, it's really going to depend. Can either it's going to have to be someone out of Hield, Moore, or Galloway steps up and is somewhere probably around a 12 to 15 point per game scorer, at least for them to make noise and be close to the playoffs. But I've got them just on the outside looking in.
Matt?
Honestly, I have them. I'm just going to say I've got them finishing either 13 or 14. I think Anthony Davis is going to be fantastic. I think Buddy Hield is going to be really good. Probably right now, he's probably my favorite for Rookie of the Year based on injuries and everything, and guys like Ingram looking like crap. And then, so I think he'll be really good for them. I could see him averaging 15, 16 a ball game for that club and shooting a high percentage of threes. I think he could be their second scorer, even if he's off the bench. He could be their second leading scorer. But I just don't know if they have enough. Can a playoff team be led by Etuan Moore and Langston Galloway and Solomon Hill? I don't know. So I've got them finishing 13 or 14. I could be wrong. I don't want to offend any Pelicans fans out there. That's just how I see it right now.
Yeah.
I know they're going to come after me in the comments section. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and that's fair. Go ahead. It's your opinion.
I'm going to say they could be anywhere. I don't have them in the playoffs, unfortunately. Sorry, Pelicans fans. You can attack me too. I've got them somewhere in that 10 to 13 range. I don't think they fall to the bottom two. I'm not going to reveal who my bottom two are, but if you follow basketball, you can pretty much kind of guess who those two are going to be in the Western Conference. It's just going to depend on the health of basically, can Anthony Davis stay healthy through the season, and can some of the role players step up? I'm not ready to declare Buddy Hield Rookie of the Year because I've got a surprise pick for that when we do our prediction show. I'm going to save it till then. But Buddy Hield is going to be he's going to have nights, 20 points a game, over a couple span of 10 games. He can have 3 or 4 20-point games. Then he's going to have some games where he shoots, 3 of 12 or 3 of 14 and struggle. So for him, it's just going to be consistency throughout his rookie season. And then I want to see the other guys, Etuan Moore, Langston Galloway. I want to see those guys step into their roles. Quincy Pondexter come back and finally be healthy. So, I mean, that's kind of where I have them, more or less in that range. And they could shock people depending on, how fast Drew Holiday can come back, if he comes back at all, and some of the other pieces gel. Keith, give me 3 keys that you think may make or break the Pelican season.
Yeah, so I'll stay away from health because that's obviously already a problem.
And yes, they're already banged up.
It's breaking them already.
So I'm going to say, I'll go back to, can they find that second scorer behind Davis?
Mm-hmm.
Can Davis become that player that can lift his team and drag them to the playoffs? I see him almost as similar, not only in the way he plays the game, but in a similar situation to Kevin Garnett back in his Timberwolves days, where he was just surrounded by awful rosters for a lot of the time, but Garnett continually dragged that team into the playoffs. just by virtue of his sheer greatness. So can Davis become that player? I personally think he can. And then the third one for me is who kind of goes along with that second scorer, but can they shoot it well enough? Because even when they're healthy, they don't have a lot of shooting. They're going to need Hield and Pondexter to become shooters for them and be what they want them to be. And as well as Solomon Hill is going to have to go back to the way he shot the ball a couple years ago versus the way he shot the ball last year. If they can get that's going to be a big improvement for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Matt.
I think, you've got a lot of new faces, and I said this on a lot of our previews. I think defining the roles of a lot of the guys on the team, especially all these new guys who are probably going to be rotations play, especially a guy like Lance Stevenson. You want him to know what his role is. 2, I think, is going to be defense. Because offensively, I agree with Keith. They're going to have some rough nights. They're going to struggle offensively. So I think the defense is going to have to keep them in games, and you got one of the better defenders in Anthony Davis. So I think that's going to be key. 3, I'm going to go shooting, because if they've got to be able to make shots. If they can't make shots, and like I said, 2, it's got to be you got to really be able to play defense. And is this group going to be able to lock down like that and get stops?
Absolutely. I'm going to kind of piggyback off your shooting key, because Hield is really, in my opinion, the only consistent knockdown perimeter shooter that they have that can consistently, basically from what we've seen in college, shoot it. But Pondexter, if he can come back healthy, he's got a nice three-point shot, especially from the corner. A guy like Eachwan Moore can shoot it, if given the chance. But we're really going to have to see somebody like a Lance Stevenson. Can he knock down some perimeter shots when needed? Because teams are going to, learn that he's a drive to the hole kind of guy, and that's about all he can do. I don't really see him, developing that perimeter game so far. So if he can do that and show flashes of that, I think that'll be a key for them. Getting someone next to Anthony Davis that's consistent, whether it's Terrence Jones or Omar Ashik or Ajinça, down there, get somebody that can play next to him and help rebound and defend. That's going to be a key because I don't think you can play Anthony Davis at the 5 for, 40 minutes a game. Against every team. Now, he has his mismatches where he's going to be able to do that. Terrence Jones will be able to play the 4, but you need Ashik or Ajinça to be able to step up this year and finally do something, give them anything at all. And then the third key is, as you guys touched on, is just how those pieces fit, making sure everybody that comes in knows what their role is able to contribute consistency with that role, because you've got a lot of guys that like Langston Galloway, Eachwan Moore, even Tim Frazier, that have played spot minutes here and there, been rotation pieces in and out of the rotation, but never consistent guys in the rotation. So it's going to be a big step up for them to have to do. And then, of course, Buddy Hield coming in. Is he going to be able to light the league on fire right away, or is he going to take a little while like he did at Oklahoma and kind of a late bloomer? Going into the last question that we have for the show, Keith, give me a bold prediction for the Pelicans this year.
I'm going to say they miss the playoffs, and going into the offseason, we get our first Anthony Davis wants out. He wants to go somewhere else rumbles. It's been 5 years now, if that happens, of one playoff season and consistent losing, and I think he's going to want to win and play with other talented players. So I think we're going to start hearing that chatter at the end of the year.
Okay. Matt, give me a bold prediction.
Well, as everybody can see, I've done a complete 180 here on Buddy Hield. So, I was not in love with him going into the draft. Now I think this guy's going to be fantastic. Rookie of the year, Buddy Hield, and he's going to average between 17 and 19 a game. And what I've seen just in the preseason, his off the dribble game looks really nice. He's got a nice bounce to his step off the dribble, and his playmaking is looking good. His passing, and he's making incredible shots too. So, but we knew he could do that. But I'm really surprised by his off the dribble and his playmaking, that part of his game. I think he's going to be fantastic.
Nice. Okay. I've actually got two. So the first one is going to be Lance Stevenson is in the running for most improved player. I think he really shows what he can do. Being the primary ball handler, I think he takes on a bigger responsibility and could possibly be right there for that award. The second is that the Pelicans make a major move at the deadline with Tyreke Evans. I think they've realized they're at their end with Evans, and basically he's given them all they can. So they try to move Evans and possibly could look to deal Drew Holiday if they can get some quality pieces back. So I'm just going to throw that out there as my predictions. I mean, I've already said that they're not going to make the playoffs, and it's inevitable, I think, Keith, in my opinion, that Anthony Davis, if they keep struggling, he's not going to want to stay on a losing team.
Yep.
Because you're basically wasting your prime years. And it's not like the NBA was in the 90s where it's like, so, too bad, so sad. You will your way to a win and get past the Michael Jordans of the world. Now it's let's go team up and, go that route. I don't think he does that, but I think he goes to a better situation.
Yeah, now I'm full on prepared for a barrage of Celtics fans talking about how they're going to trade the Nets picks for him. So I probably should have kept that one in my back pocket, but I'm ready for it.
You know it's coming. Anybody that you throw out there in any kind of trade scenario, the Boston fans are going to want them. Unless it's whether it's DeMarcus Cousins or Blake Griffin. I mean, they've all been thrown out there, and Boston wants them all. If it was up to Boston, they'd have the super 12.
Yeah,
they'd have the 12 superstars of the NBA all on one team.
That's right.
They want them all, but don't give up any of the Nets picks. So somehow
we got the Nets picks, and let's overvalue our players that probably wouldn't start for some other teams.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to get hate on that comment, but oh well. I'm a Sixers fan. I've already got enough sorrows. So that wraps us up for this show. Keith, we want to thank you again, as always, for taking the time to be with us.
Sure.
Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA, no spaces in that name there. So, and then you can find my written work at realgm.com and today's Fast Break for covering the league as a whole, and then Celtics specific work at Celtics blog. As the season gets cranked up, getting a lot more active here and getting pieces out. So really looking forward to things getting started. And, we're only a couple weeks away now or I guess 2.5 weeks from opening night, which is pretty exciting.
Absolutely. We're excited. And Matt, real quick, let everybody know that's listening where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at MeekMill1981.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Petetoal, Petetoal. And if you want to check out the replay of this show, any of the other podcasts, you can go to our YouTube page. You'll see all the videos there. Leave us a comment. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a rating as well on the channel. And then you can actually go to iTunes under podcast, Unquestionably Raw Podcasts. Subscribe to that as well. Leave us a 5-star rating and a comment because we really need it to kind of get out there and keep pushing this forward and pushing this great content for everybody. Real quick side note, we want to thank everybody. We've really come a long way with the podcast because of our great audience, viewers and listeners. We hit number 70 overall on the iTunes Sports and Recreation podcast this week. So we're very excited that we continue to get thousands of views on YouTube and thousands of downloads on iTunes. So definitely please keep checking us out. And just letting everybody know our next season preview show will be 2 p.m. Eastern this Monday, which is October 10th. We're going to preview the Denver Nuggets. So definitely check that out. And until next time, we'll see you.